you want to make sure that they know, the one thing you want to cover with them more than anything else. So with that said, time to grab your paper. In the middle of the paper, I want you to make a great big circle in the middle. This is our bullseye. There's an old saying that says, if you aim at nothing, you'll probably hit it. So if you don't aim at anything, well, so let's create a bullseye. We can always change it. We can always pivot, but we need to know where we're beginning, what we're thinking. If you have a working title, that's of course awesome. If you don't have a working title, then just go with a topic. I want to talk about, in that 5 minutes, I would tell this person about. Now, the good news is this paper is only for you. I promise I won't make you turn it in and grade it or anything. You just simply need to be able to read and understand what it is. So you can make shorthand notes to yourself. You can say things like, about the time when. And as long as you remember the time when, that's all that matters. So in the middle of that circle, write down your target, your title, or your topic. All right? And then from the circle, let's draw 4 lines: north, south, east, and west, or up, down, right, and left, whichever way you want to look at that. All right. And we are going to start on the line that's going to the right, the line that's pointing east. Okay. We want to talk about the who and why. You see, people don't buy from people that they don't know. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. We buy from people that we know, like, and trust. I know I just assailed you with a ton of quotes, but all of them are very true. And section 1 is about who you are and how you discovered exactly what you're going to teach them. We follow a little format to be able to make this work. It's simply this. This is who I am today, but it wasn't always that way. And this is what I've learned. We need them to know us, like us, and trust us, to believe in us so that they're bought in. Now, some of you, if you happen to be writing fiction books, this is where we have to create from the beginning an engaging, compelling character. If right from the very moment that the book starts, we're not curious or even possibly in love with the character, we can't possibly be able to get the reader to want to go on to page 2, let alone to read all the rest of the pages. We might say something like, she looked with trepidation, fear showing to everyone in her eyes, but she stood staunchly and began the process of moving forward in her life. Now, don't you want to know who she is and what she's doing? That was just off at the top of my head. I didn't steal that from one of my books. Anyway, we want to, in section 1, talk about this is my life now, but it wasn't always this way. And that's how I discovered this. So draw for yourself 3 little lines off of the bottom of that line and put in the best now. So when we're talking about now, we're talking about showing a vision to the reader of what life can look like when they too do this thing that you've discovered and that you do with grace and ease. Does that make sense? So, before I discovered this thing I struggled with, but now that so we're not going to go into that quite yet. Right now, what we want to do is we want to show them, now that I know this thing, now my life is more fulfilling. I love more. I know more. So that's the best now. And then we want to dive in. We want to use something. I want you to put these in the back of your head and remember them forever. We want to be vulnerable and valuable. It's in our vulnerability that we connect one to another. It's that ability to be able to say and mean, I know what you're going through. I've been there myself. I get it. I understand. And maybe you're a couple of steps down the road from where your reader is, and that's even better. Maybe you can show them where the rocks that you missed when you fell off into the swamp, where they are. And maybe they can miss out on some of the things you went through. But we need to be vulnerable to them. It's in our vulnerability that we connect. It's in our vulnerability that people understand they're not alone. And then after we've shared with them what we went through, we can share with them the amazing discovery of what we learned. This is what I learned. This is how I learned it. This is this cool thing that allows me to now live that life that I started off this section talking to you about. It's important that I note now, we're talking about the 4 sections of a book. These aren't necessarily 4 chapters. This section could be 1 chapter. It could be 10. It doesn't really matter at this point how many chapters you're writing. It's just about putting together the format in the sections that all books are. If you've never listened to me do this before, now every time you read a book, you're going to start seeing the magic of the fact that this is in all the books. There's a few exceptions, but in most all books out there, this is the 4 steps that we do to tell a story, to write a book. So now let's move on to section 2. Section 2 is the line going down, the line going south, however you want to say that. Okay. And section 2 is about, what does this solve? This is our teaching part. I always tell people when I'm helping people learn speaking, tell a person what you're going to tell them, then tell them what you told them. So we want to take a thing. Remember before I said take 1 point, make it really clear and give them a clear action from that 1 point? Well, that's what we want to do. We want to give them a clear, followable, actionable thing that they can do. Now, there may be steps. If we were teaching them something, there may be 3 or 4 or 5 steps to be able to do that one thing, and that's okay. But we can only do one thing. Any of you that have ever read the book Profit First by Mike Michalowicz, love that book. If you haven't read it, get it in audio. Mike is hilarious. He is so much fun to listen to in audio. But he has a section in his book right towards the beginning, really, where he says, before you move on, go and do this thing and then come back to the book. Well, none of us did that. We all continued reading or listening to the audio. And the problem that our reader has is if there are, say, 10 steps to do this one thing, we get all the way to number 10. We're excited because number 10 is always exciting. It's got outcome. It's got results. It's sexy. It's fulfilling. And so we just immediately jump to doing number 10. Well, here's the problem. We didn't do 1 through 9, and then number 10 doesn't work. And then we're mad at the author because what they said wasn't true. It's a bunch of hooey. Instead of realizing that we need steps 1 through 9 in order for step 10 to really actually work. So what we need to do is we need to just give them a book that is step 1 and then invite them to take the next step with us. I tell this joke all the time, and I think it's only me, maybe a few other people that are my age, but only me that really even understands or appreciates this. But as they taught the Winter Warlock in Santa Claus is Coming to Town way back in the 60s, for those of you that remember that cartoon, we've got to put one foot in front of the other, and soon we'll be walking across the floor. Lonnie's rolling her eyes at me now for that. But it's true.
Reindeer.
That is how we learn things. We take one step at a time. Even when we're jumping, we only jump one jump at a time. Even if we move both feet, we're still only taking just one step. We want to give that to our people so that they can know how to make more money or have greater joy or deeper meaning in their life. We want to help them solve the problem that is the reason why we're writing this book. So we're going to do the 3 lines off of that and jot down some notes to ourselves of what and some stories that we can tell. This is what I'm going to tell you, and then tell you, and then tell you what I told you. Okay, so that's section 2. We're going to move on now to section 3. This one is a lot of fun and sometimes scary for us a little bit, because this is the takeaway. This is the downside. This is the, well, what if I don't do it? Okay. You see, we have to empower people when they're reading our books and we're giving them something, especially something transformational. We need to empower them with the ability to choose, even if what they choose is to not do it. And that can be really hard for us. It can be very frustrating. You know what it's like when you tell somebody exactly what to do, and then they come back to you 3 months, 6 months, 2 years later, and they're struggling with the same exact thing. And the answer that you have for them is the same exact thing as it was 2 years ago. So what we want to do in this section is we want to help them see this is what you've been going through, and this is what you'll continue to go through if you don't make this change. And then empower them with the ability to choose to change, to know that they can, and then to do it. What are some of the downsides? Less money, more stress. Your business that is failing completely fails. You stay stuck in this continued pattern. There's also some great things you can think of, and I even encourage you to write these down. If I could go back to the younger version of myself, before the transition that we wrote about in section 1, what advice would I give me? Now, I love it because every once in a while I'll run into somebody and they're like, my life's perfect, or my life turned out exactly the way that it did because of all the decisions I made. That's absolutely true. And I'm glad that you are exactly who you are right now. But let's be real. All of us can think back at whether it's our teen years or our young adult years or last week, and think of how we would have done that thing differently. It doesn't have to be, earth-shattering changing. I've often said when remodeling a house, everybody should get a tester house first to learn and make all the mistakes so that then when they go to actually remodel their house, they can do it the way that they know now they should have done it. Because if you don't, and I can tell you from experience, if you don't, you'll end up sitting up in the middle of the night when you can't sleep, looking at that wall and realizing that if you would have just done XYZ differently, it would have been exactly what you wish it was now. Of course, you're not going to just blow out that whole one wall just to make that change. But that's the kind of stuff that we would advise the younger version of ourselves. Sometimes we have people come to us and they say, hey, I wish I would have met you last week, last month, last year. I wish I would have known what I know now because I wouldn't have done what I did. It can be some of the toughest conversations we have when we're coaching somebody, when we have to explain to them that the money that they just spent, they shouldn't have spent it. They wasted it. It's not going to do them any good. It didn't help them. Or sometimes we have people come to us and they tell us about all the money they spent with other people and they still don't have the result they wanted. And of course they're feeling, oh, I wish I would have met you sooner. This is the kind of things we can put in here so that we can tell them the stories of the people. Now, some of you may be thinking, well, I haven't actually charged anybody for this thing that I want to write in this book. That's okay. You've been practicing it, maybe on friends, maybe on family, definitely on yourself. You've been encouraging, succeeding, failing, going back and forth through it with yourself for years. And you can tell the stories, even if all the stories are just the story of you. What is the downside to doing this? What are the things that they will be stuck in? And what are the things they can change? This is also what we call in 3-act plays the second act. This is in movies the downturn. Luke Skywalker and Han Solo are stuck in the trash compactor. And the droids are outside of the door trying desperately to get it opened in time. And they hear the screams and our hearts sink because now our heroes are dead. And C-3PO says, oh, my master, I've killed my master. Now, that's not the end of Star Wars. I'm very sorry if those of you who have never seen Star Wars, you kind of can't spoiler alert a movie that was from 1976, but it's a cool movie even still. But that is what a section 3 is in a nonfiction book. And it can also be a real intense takeaway build-up kind of moment, even in our nonfictions. So that's what we're going to do in our 3 lines off of our line going to the left. And that's why I wish I did it sooner. Things that are bad currently, results that you could have had. I wish I would have met you sooner stories from the people that are in your life that you've helped, even yourself. All right, let's move on to section 4. Section 4 is what are the key things that they can do right now, today. Section 4 breaks up into 2 different parts. We have the immediate action that they themselves can do, that if they never work with you, this is the thing that they can do. They can set the book down and go and do it right now. We also have, additionally to that, we have the things that they should do, can do, the next step with you. After reading this book, I have this course, this next book, this discussion, this coaching program, this whatever that is the next step beyond this book. And we can invite them to that. So we have both of those. So first of all, let's talk about the right now actionable steps. Let's say that our book was a teaching on why hydration is so important. Why is it important to stay hydrated? How powerful is hydration? I did a cool interview with a lady. It's been about a year ago now. She was talking about the effect that dehydration actually literally has on your brain, about the brain damage that actually occurs when we're even just mildly dehydrated, and how important to the functioning of our brain staying hydrated is. It's a very cool interview. I don't remember the lady's name. You'd have to go back and dig through some past episodes of my show to hear it. But very, very cool stuff. And her whole teaching is on why you need to hydrate, why water is so important, why it should be the primary thing you drink. That would be her book. In that, there could be an immediate action. And I use this example a lot. I think it's a very good example for people. If you need to begin the process of drinking more water, of staying more hydrated, the first thing you need to do is you need to go get a drink of water right now. Now, here's the reality of the steps of that. Okay, first of all, we have to do the most difficult of all things. We have to turn away from our computer. That's right. We can't one more thing ourselves. We can't answer one more email. We need to set the book down, go walk to the kitchen, get a glass out, fill it up with water, then don't bring it back to your desk and set it down next to you, like this bottle of water sitting next to me is right now. But actually drink some of the water then. And then also bring a full glass of water back to have with you while you're working, and learn to sip on water all the time. That might be all the steps. It could even include the very specifics of, after we've turned around from the computer, we got to do the difficult step of standing up, getting up out of the chair and not letting ourselves get caught by that message that just came in that causes us to turn back around after we turned away from the computer. So our steps can be like that. Now, we want to keep it simple for the folks. I suggest that you have 1 to 5 steps. That's what I mean by the tips. 1 to 5 tips to help them with that one thing. Okay. When we give people multiple things that they can do, well, you could journal, or you could do yoga every day, or you could do this, especially if we say it, or you could, it leaves people in confusion and then they don't take action. We want to give them a strong, powerful action and the steps to be able to do it right now. Set the book down, turn away from the computer, stand up, walk across the room, get the glass out of the cupboard, fill it with water, drink the water right now, refill the cup, bring it back, set it on the desk, someplace where you're sure to see it, but not where you'll knock it over and ruin your computer, and drink water on a regular basis throughout your day. So those are simple, easy, actionable steps on the very large whole thing that she teaches about water. And we could do that on anything that your book's about. Then, so that's our immediate actionable thing. Then we have what's the next step with us? And it might be something that has to do with our health and wellness. Maybe it's, in this case, maybe it's a group where we all hold each other accountable for how are we doing on a day-to-day basis. Maybe if we're trying to lose weight, there's nothing like an accountability buddy if you've decided that you're going to be serious about losing weight, because, you can lie to yourself. You can track your points or your calories or, your exercise or all that. You can track it for yourself. And if it's not true, you're cheating yourself, absolutely. But nobody's going to look over your shoulder and know. But when you have an accountability partner, oh my gosh, you're going to feel really bad, first of all, if you're lying to them, and you usually can't. But secondly, you're going to be on the phone with them, or you're going to be in the message room with them or whatever. And you're going to have to tell them, I blew it. I ate a whole entire pizza today. I only meant to have one slice, but before I knew it, it was all gone. Or, whatever it might be. I was going to walk 10,000 steps today, but I only walked 2,000 because I just felt lazy today and I didn't want to do it. It's okay to be real. So those are the kind of courses, groups, programs, things that for whatever you're doing, we can create for our people so that they can know exactly what the next step with you is. We're going to give them the action steps and the little breakdown of the 1, 2, 3. 3 steps is even better than having 5. If there's 5 things to do, having 3 things of get up, go get the water and drink it now is easier than the get up, turn away from your computer, get up, walk across the room, open the door, obviously, right? It becomes a little redundant at that point. So those 3 basic steps, most people can kind of fill in the blanks between there. And we found out from research that actually when we give a person more than 3 things to do, more than 3 choices, they tend to lock up and not do any of them. So now we've got our paper. We've got our 4 lines with 3 lines going off of them. We've got all kinds of powerful information. And it may look like chicken scratches to you, but that's okay, as long as you can read it. Now we want to kind of overview a little bit. What was each section? Section 1, again, we talked about who we are and how we discovered this thing. This is who I am today, but it wasn't always this way. And this is what I learned. In section 2, it's our solution. It's our teaching. It's what does this solve? Why should you do this? And how do you do this, even more than just the why? Section 3 is what is the downside if they don't do it? Okay, you don't do it. This is what life's going to look like. This is what I would tell the younger version of me if I could go back and tell me why I should have done this sooner. And then section 4 is what can you do right now today? What can you do on your own? And what are the next steps to come and work with me? All right. Now, last but not least, we want to talk about stories. Our whole book typically isn't just stories, but stories fill in the blanks. When I use even quirky, funny things like, put one foot in front of the other with the Winter Warlock, and it makes Lonnie look at me and go, oh man, they're memorable, even if memorable in a bad way. When we tell the stories of our children and our life and the things we went through, that emphasizes the point. So it's not about the whole book being about us, but it is about the stories of us and the people that we've worked with that make it the most powerful. It helps relate it. It helps allow people, and it allows you again to be vulnerable and valuable for them. So what I'd like for you to do is in each of the sections, in the corners, write just a note to yourself of an additional story or 2 for each of those sections that you can tell. Your own story, a story of a client, story of a friend or a family member. Again, it doesn't have to be somebody that paid you for it to be a powerful story of change that somebody made in their life. So jot down those stories. And congratulations, you've just written